Hello and welcome back to Nerd Doc, where you're about to find out that I'm a pretty harsh critic. You know, all last week I kept hearing about film critics and Marvel enthusiasts talk about how amazing Shang-Chi was, how the post-credit scene provided in-game levels of hype, and how this is just a huge turning point for Marvel. Screw all that, because 90% of those comments are just Marvel fans being Marvel fans. Now, I like a good Marvel movie just like anybody else, but here at Nerd Doc, I'll give you a straight review, Marvel fan or not. Now, if you're a big Marvel fan, you'll probably like the movie more than I did, but if you're looking for a more realistic take on Shang-Chi, you've come to the right place. That's not to say I didn't like Shang-Chi, let me be clear. The movie is pretty decent. It's just not amazing. It's not going to make any legit top 10 lists for MCU films or even martial arts films. But before we get too far into things, let me just say that this is a spoiler-free review, aside from what you may have already seen in trailers. With that out of the way, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was a pretty good Marvel origin film. No, it's not as good as almost any of the Marvel team-up films, as you might expect, but it's better than the films that are generally considered to be at the bottom of the barrel for the MCU. I'm talking about films like Iron Man 3 and Thor: Dark World. Both movies have fans, sure, I'm sure there's some people that like them, but let's be honest, most people consider them to be some of the weakest MCU films. Shang-Chi takes a pretty normal Marvel origin movie and adds a bit of Asian flair. Now, I know a lot of people were hoping Shang-Chi would be a cultural phenomenon similar to Black Panther, but unfortunately I really doubt that's going to happen. It's great to see Asian representation on the big screen, but Shang-Chi is just a very safe, middle-of-the-road movie and doesn't have anywhere near the style of Black Panther, which is more than a little disappointing. As an example, when we're first introduced to Wakanda in Black Panther, the soundtrack picks up, the African drums kick in, and even T'Challa himself mentions,
"This never gets old."
You just don't get that kind of flair and cultural enthusiasm in Shang-Chi. You see China and other mystical lands, but it feels muted compared to the burst of African culture we got in Black Panther. I will say that the fight scenes in Shang-Chi are above average and clearly inspired by some of the greats in the business. One scene feels right out of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, while other scenes have clear Jackie Chan or Donnie Yen influences. Marvel probably could have pushed the envelope here a bit more, but the fights are still pretty entertaining in their own right, and if you aren't big into martial arts films, you'll be even more impressed. But the acting is really what elevates Shang-Chi. Tony Leung is Wenwu, aka the Mandarin. While he is the main antagonist of the film, you kinda want to root for the guy. He doesn't come off like a traditional Marvel villain. Similarly, Simu Liu embodies the character of Shang-Chi just like Robert Downey Jr. did with Tony Stark or Chris Evans did with Steve Rogers. Awkwafina kinda feels like she's just playing herself in the movie, and the script doesn't really give her a whole lot to do as Shang-Chi's best friend Katie, but even her one-liners aren't too bad, if maybe some fall a little flat. The only bad acting is from Florian Montagu as Razor Fist, who has to be one of the most bland evil sidekicks in the MCU. The CG on his arm also got a little distracting, but that was only a minor annoyance. So look, I'm not here to tell you Shang-Chi is bad, because it's not. It's just not amazing. It's nowhere near as good as Avengers Infinity War or Thor Ragnarok, as you might expect, but it's still quite a bit better than Captain Marvel and the recent release Black Widow. It's a very middle-of-the-road Marvel movie, which is pretty standard for origin films and helps build excitement for the character's next steps. Shang-Chi is a welcome addition to the MCU, and Marvel fanatics will probably enjoy this movie a lot more than the average person, even though it doesn't have a lot of external Marvel influences. Shang-Chi feels a lot like a Guardians of the Galaxy film, where it doesn't really deal with anything else except for what's going on in Shang-Chi's life. Look out for 2 more scenes after the movie, one during the mid-credits and one during the post-credits. We're not going to spoil anything here, but if you've been on the internet, these have been hyped to no end. So go in with a little bit of tempered expectations. They're just normal Marvel post-credit scenes. Here at Nerd Doc, I give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings 7 out of 10 rings. Stay tuned for more videos, as we'll probably be taking a closer look at the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer that we're hopefully getting tonight, as well as diving into what to expect from Phase 4 and Phase 5 of the MCU next week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.